Chapter 1: The Silence of the Dead Circuit. It is 1977. The streets of Santiago are cold. The humming of the IBM 360 has stopped. The hexagonal room is now a tomb. Dust covers the once glowing screens. The future has been disconnected. In 1972, this room breathed with life. Now, it smells like damp concrete. Empty punch cards litter the hallway. The fans are no longer spinning. The dream of a digital nation is over. The military junta holds the keys now. They don't want a nervous system. They want a silent, obedient body. The air is thick with heavy silence. Information no longer flows to the people. The central brain is officially dead. It is a surgical removal of hope. The lights flicker for the last time. The age of transparency is gone. Welcome to the autopsy of a dream. This is the end of Project Cybersyn. Chapter 2: The Ideological Purge. General Pinochet did not understand networks.tom. Cybersyn was a communist ghost. He feared a system that worked alone. The military only understands a single line. Orders go down, obedience goes up. But Cybersyn was a living circle. It empowered the workers in the factories. It gave them a digital voice. Pinochet viewed this as a direct threat. He ordered a total ideological cleansing. The engineers were labeled as enemies. The software was called a Marxist weapon. They hunted the men behind the screens. Science became a reason for arrest. The logic of the system was forbidden. They didn't just want the hardware. They wanted to kill the idea itself. A decentralized world was too dangerous. The hierarchy demanded a total reset. The purge was quiet but absolute. Chapter 3: The Chicago Boys Knew Math. The soldiers brought the guns. The Chicago boys brought the spreadsheets. These economists were trained in America. They had a different kind of math. They didn't care about human feedback loops. They worshipped the invisible hand of profit. Stafford Beer's models were tossed out. The public interest was now a liability. They began the shock therapy of Chile. The economy became a cold laboratory. National factories were sold for cheap. The liquidation files grew very thick. They replaced cybernetics with raw capitalism. The data feeds were used for greed. Social welfare was deleted from the code. The numbers only mattered for the elite. The heart was removed from the machine. Logic was stripped of its humanity. The market became the only god. The people became just tiny data points. The system was now a bank vault. Chapter 4: The Shattering of the Starship. Imagine the heavy boots on the carpet. Soldiers entered the sacred hexagonal room. They saw the white fiberglass chairs. They looked like thrones from the future. To the soldiers, it was witchcraft. They didn't see a management tool. They saw a ship with no captain. The first strike hit the main screen. A rifle but shattered the frosted glass. Thousands of data slides scattered like snow. The geometric buttons were kicked in. The red, blue, and green lights died. The plush brown leather was ripped open. Bayonets sliced through the control panels. The architecture of liberty was bleeding. It was a physical execution of science. The Starship Bridge was now a wreck. The future was broken with blunt force. They treated the room like a traitor. The shards of glass covered the floor. The dream was physically dismantled. Chapter 5: The Funeral of the Magnetic Soul. In the courtyard, a fire was burning. The magnetic tapes were piled high. These were the brains of the nation. They contained the code of cyberstride. Years of genius were on those reels. A soldier threw a tape into flames. The plastic began to twist and melt. The Bayesian algorithms turned into smoke. The data of the people was erased. It was a digital library on fire. The tapes screamed as they burned. Every line of code was a memory. The history of 1972 was vanishing. No backups existed in those days. The soul of the machine was gone. The fire left only black, toxic ash. They wanted no evidence of this genius. The software died in a metal barrel. It was a funeral for the future. The knowledge was lost to the wind. The silence was now complete. Chapter 6: The October Strike, the day the math fought back. October 1972. The air in Santiago was cold. But the political heat was boiling. The CIA had a plan. They wanted to kill the economy. They funded the truckers' unions. 40,000 trucks stopped moving. Imagine a country 4,000 kilometers long. Now imagine its roads are dead. No bread reached the bakeries. No fuel reached the power plants. The city was a silent trap. The world waited for Allende to fall. But inside the Santa Lucia basement, something was pulsing. The Cybersyn team was awake. They didn't have guns. They had data. The telex machines became weapons. They received 2,000 messages every day. These were the nation's nerves. Stafford Beer looked at the screens. He saw the gaps in the blockade. The government had only 200 loyal trucks. It was 200 against 40,000. On paper, it was suicide. In reality, it was a chess match. The team used Cybersyn to calculate. They didn't guess. They optimized. They found secret dirt roads. They tracked every liter of milk. They moved food like ammunition. The software identified the most critical points. If a city was starving, the computer found a surplus. It diverted a van in real time. This was the first cyber war. The math was faster than the sabotage. For 24 days, the network held. The invisible wires defeated the physical siege. The factories did not close. The people did not starve. The CIA's millions of dollars failed. They were defeated by a British wizard and a handful of Chilean engineers. It was a miracle of logistics. It proved that information is power. But this victory was a curse. The enemies realized the truth. They couldn't win with money. They needed steel. They needed a coup. The machine had saved the democracy. But it also marked itself for death. Chapter 7: The Happiness Meters, Quantifying the Human Soul. Stafford Beer had a dark fear. He hated the word dictatorship. He also hated slow democracy. Voting every 4 years is a joke, he said. He called it a low-frequency signal. To him, it was like a dead battery. He wanted a living feedback loop. He proposed a project called Cyberfolk. It was the most radical idea in history. The secret was a small wooden box. It looked like a piece of furniture. But inside, it was a revolution. It had a single analog dial. Beer wanted these in every home. One side meant I am miserable. The other meant I am flourishing. This was the algedonic loop. Algos for pain. Hedon for pleasure. It was the world's first like button. But it was for a nation. The signals traveled through electricity lines. They converged in the Santiago Ops Room. Imagine President Allende in his chair. He looks at a giant needle. It is the National Happiness Index. He passes a new decree. He waits. The needle swings toward pain. He knows the truth instantly. He doesn't wait for an election. He doesn't wait for a riot. He reacts to the people's feelings. It was supposed to be the ultimate democracy. A government that feels what you feel. Liberty through systems science. But the CIA turned it into a nightmare. They used the media to spread terror. They told the public it was a mind control box. They called Stafford Beer a techno-warlock. They turned a listening ear into a spying eye. People began to fear the wires. The project was too early for its time. We didn't have the language for it. Today, we have these meters. We carry them in our pockets. We call them smartphones. But they don't hold the powerful accountable. They hold us accountable to the powerful. Beer's dream was flipped. The loop of liberty became a loop of addiction. Chapter 8: The Economic Shock, Silence of the Dashboard. Santiago is a city of shadows. The hexagonal room is now a ghost. No data flows through the copper wires. The real-time pulse has stopped beating. The Chicago boys have taken the stage. They believe in the market's cold hand. They don't want a big mother system. They want a machine that prints money. The social safety nets are being shredded. Look at the long lines for bread. People wait for hours in the gray fog. A few years ago, the computer knew this. Cybersyn would have flagged the shortage instantly. It would have moved flour across the mountains. Now, the ministers don't see the hunger. They only see the soaring interest rates. The gap between rich and poor explodes. Inequality is the new national religion. The efficiency of the past is a crime. The dashboard is replaced by bank vaults. Information is no longer a public good. It is a weapon for the elite. The country is a laboratory for greed. The workers are just numbers on a ledger. The living feedback loop is officially dead. The economy is screaming, just as Nixon wanted. But no one is listening to the scream. The silence of the machine is deafening. Chapter 9: The Execution of the Brain, The Final Reset. September 11, 1973. Tuesday morning. The Hawker Hunter jets appeared. They were not a system error. They were a violent reset. The rockets hit the palace. Allende stood his ground. "History is ours," he said. Then the radio went silent. But the soldiers had another target. They marched to the Cybersyn annex. They entered the hexagonal ops room. They didn't find a military center. They found 7 orange chairs. They found white fiberglass. They found glowing screens. The soldiers were confused. To them, it looked like a spaceship. They didn't see science. They saw Marxist witchcraft. They didn't understand decentralization. They only understood orders. A room where everyone was equal was a threat. The execution of the brain began. They didn't just turn it off. They murdered the interface. Rifle butts smashed the glass screens. Bayonets ripped the plush fabric. They kicked the geometric buttons. The wires were torn like veins. They were killing a future. The magnetic tapes were seized. Millions of lines of Bayesian code. The software that fed a nation. It was thrown into the fire. It was a digital iconoclasm. They wanted to erase the memory. They wanted the pyramid back. The Chicago boys arrived next. They replaced the cyberneticists. They brought the logic of greed. They didn't want a big mother. They wanted a cold market. The ops room became a dark basement. The telex machines were silenced. Some were used to track prisoners. The nervous system was lobotomized. The wizard fled to the woods. The dream was buried in a mass grave. But the ghost stayed. It whispers to us today. It tells us that technology is a choice. We chose the wrong one in 1973. Chapter 10: The Exile, The Wizard in the Woods. Stafford Beer is a broken giant now. He sits in a small stone cottage. The hills of Wales are damp and dark. There is no electricity in his workspace. The man who designed the future lives simply. He trades his suits for a rough robe. He drinks red wine and stares at rain. The death of Allende haunts his dreams. He feels the weight of the failed revolution. My brain failed its body, he whispers. He writes poetry about the loss of logic. He paints abstract shapes on old canvases. He realizes power is a toxic virus. It destroys even the most beautiful algorithms. He becomes a critic of his own creation. He warns the world about the new age. A system is what it does, he says. If it creates poverty, that is its purpose. He watches the rise of global corporations. They are stealing his viable system model. But they are using it for profit only. They don't want to liberate the workers. They want to optimize the human slaves. The wizard is alone with his thoughts. A king without a kingdom. A scientist who lost his laboratory. The future he saw was burned alive. Now he just waits for the end. Chapter 11, The Diaspora of Intelligence, Hidden Seeds. The Cybersyn engineers are fleeing the coup. They carry microfilms in their coat pockets. They hide technical charts in old suitcases. The brain of Chile is being scattered. Some land in London, others in Vancouver. They take the secret of the network abroad. They don't speak of the hexagonal room. It is a dangerous memory to hold. But the logic stays alive in their minds. You can find traces of it in Canada. The early computer networks of the North. The systems thinking in British management. They were the seeds of a digital forest. But the soil back home was poisoned. The military erased their names from history. In Santiago, Cybersyn became a forbidden myth. Teachers were told to call it Marxist magic. The software was deleted from the mainframes. But you cannot delete a mathematical truth. The diaspora kept the ghost alive. They waited for a world that was ready. But that world never truly arrived. The technology survived, but the heart died. The data was free, but the people weren't. Chapter 12, Lessons for 2026, The Digital Crossroads. Look at your smartphone right now. It is the ops room in your pocket. You are connected to every human alive. This is Stafford Beer's global nervous system. But who is sitting in the orange chair? It is not a democratic leader. It is a trillion-dollar algorithm in California. We have the algedonic loops today. We call them likes, shares, and retweets. But they don't measure your true happiness. They measure your level of addiction. They don't tell the government you are hungry. They tell the advertiser what you crave. The big mother has become big brother. We use real-time data to sell shoes. We don't use it to save the planet. We have the power to feed everyone. But the code is owned by billionaires. Cybersyn was a tool for collective freedom. Modern AI is a tool for private control. The 1977 destruction was a global pivot. We chose the path of surveillance capitalism. We are the data points being harvested. We are no longer the masters of feedback. The ghost of Cybersyn is a warning. Technology is never neutral, Ken Kasim. It either serves the people or kills them. The crossroads of 2026 are here. Which button will you press? Chapter 13, Final Signal, The Unfinished Loop. As we conclude this series, we look back at the ruins of 1977 not with sadness, but with curiosity. Project Cybersyn proved that technology is a choice. We can choose the hierarchy of the general, or the network of the beehive. The hexagonal room is gone, but the idea of a human nervous system for society remains. Thank you for finishing this journey on Synapse Daily. Stay curious, stay human, and keep your feedback loops open.